Saying goodbyes?
Saying hello.
You think your wife can hear you?
No.
And why bother?
Maybe I'm wrong.
You're going to die.
Maybe not.
Hello, and welcome to Viva La Action, the podcast where... What are you doing?
I'm yawning!
That was the most silent yawn. You were like this... God damn it. Okay.
Alright.
Try it again.
Yeah, from the top, ladies and gents.
Okay. We're going to go in 3. I'm going to close my eyes. We're going to go in 3. We're going to go in 3, 2, 1. Hello, and welcome to Viva La Action, the movie podcast where we're talking all things action movies. The good, the bad, and the underrated. My name is Santi, and with me as always is my co-host, Grayson.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Good, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Every time you do the intro, I feel like I always think you're going to say the good, the bad, and the ugly,
Yes.
which...
That would probably be a better intro.
maybe a little bit.
Maybe. Okay, let me...
We'll think about it.
We'll think about it, yeah. I was going to say I'll test it out, but...
Because, it's kind of a pun, because there's that movie, The
Right.
Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
The good, the bad, and the... I got nothing. It's been a minute.
Yeah.
You said how you were doing. You're good?
Yeah, I'm doing alright.
Okay, I'm
Chilling.
also good.
I'm vibing.
We had a long conversation about vomit just before,
Yeah.
so...
It was real gross.
We left that for off the podcast.
Yeah.
Because no one needs to hear that.
Nope.
But it's a big week for us.
It is.
It's the first time we've been back in the same room for about
Yeah.
3 weeks.
Yep.
Well, no. That's not true. Because we were in the same room yesterday.
Well, that's true.
Regardless.
Yeah. Besides the point.
It's besides the point. So, I'm going to take a drink of water real quick.
Yep. Slurp it up. Almost said daddy. Yeah, we're back.
We're back. Yeah, it's a big week for us. We're breaking with tradition a little bit here. And we're talking about a movie that just came out.
Yep.
This last Friday. Normally we try to talk about... Because my whole thing is, like... I normally want to talk about a movie that I've had, like, time to think about. So I'm like... I usually don't want to talk about a movie that, like, just came out. Because it's, like... I haven't had enough time to, like... Process and, like, ruminate on it. But...
Marinate.
Fuck me. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah. Anyway.
It's been a minute.
It's been a minute. But we decided we'd break with tradition. We're talking about John Wick 4 this
Hell
week.
yeah.
One of our most anticipated movies of the year. The first one to come out the gate.
Uh-huh.
Part of it is it's just a good movie, and we were excited to talk about it. And part of it is we were both really lazy. And didn't want to. I'd like done some. I'd started to like write some stuff for Man of Tai Chi, but I had food poisoning and like a whole bunch of other stuff happened. I just didn't have time.
Yeah.
So we're talking about John Wick 4. We're gonna do this a little bit differently. I didn't discuss this with you beforehand, but
No, that's fine.
what I'm thinking is because this is a movie that literally just came out. I think we're gonna break this review into 2 parts.
Okay.
So for the first, 20, 30 minutes, we're going to talk about the film without spoiling it.
Okay.
So we'll just talk about, in broad strokes, like the plot and the like what we thought of it, kind of whether we'd recommend it or not. We'll do a clean break, so we'll say like from here, spoiler time.
Yeah.
And then we'll get into the
nitty gritty.
The nitty gritty.
Hit the gwitty.
I just...
Yeah. We are the worst.
We are the worst. Yeah, so... are you done?
Oh, there's a drill. Sorry.
Oh, man. This is going to be loose. There's a drill. We were putting up some shelves in this room. That shelf over there. Because we got the BTS
I was looking
Lego.
at that. Yeah, it looks dope as hell.
It does look cool. It took like 3 hours to put together.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yep. It took longer than the Star Wars helmets.
Was it just like a lot of technical
There's
shit?
a lot of technical stuff, and it was just like... Like you can see like the words and stuff. Like, took forever to put together.
Yeah.
That was fun. This is our Lego spin-off podcast.
I like the donut.
Actually, that wouldn't be a bad idea.
That'd be a very
If
good
we ever
idea.
start a Patreon, like sometime in the future, we should have like Lego chat.
Oh.
And that'll be like our like bonus episode. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
We're gonna put that. We're filing that away.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anywho.
John Wick 4.
Banger of a movie.
Banger of a movie. You kind of just spoiled what I was gonna ask you, but that's okay.
That's fine. Ask it anyway.
Well, we're talking John Wick 4.
Yeah.
It's the 4th entry in the John Wick franchise.
Wick.
This one directed by Chad Stahelski. So he directed. He was co-director on the first one, and then he also directed 2 and 3 solo. This movie was written by Shay Hatton and Michael Finch, based on characters created by Derek Kolstad, who wrote 1, 2, and 3. He was not involved in the writing process on this one.
Do we know why?
No, I looked into it, and I think he's just busy doing other stuff. Because he also wrote Nobody, and he wrote, I think he might have written Hotel Artemis and a couple other things.
Okay.
So he's busy doing stuff.
He just had a full plate.
He just had a full plate, so.
Gotcha.
As always, the film stars Keanu Reeves as Mr.
Absolute legend.
Mr. Jordani Jovanovic, also known as John Wick. But it also co-stars Ian McShane, Lance Reddick, rest in peace, Lawrence Fishburne, who all return as the manager, the concierge, and the Bowery King, respectively. But we also get some new players in this. So we get Rina Sawayama, who plays Akira. We get Hiroyuki Sanada, who plays Shimazu. Donnie Yen as Kane. Shamir Anderson as the Tracker, or as he calls himself, Nobody. Marco Zaror as Chidi. And Scott Adkins as Killa. Plus Bill Skarsgård as the Marquis. And many, many others.
Bill Skarsgård. Is he related to the guy in It?
He is the guy in It. Yeah. That's Pennywise.
That's the same guy?
Yep. Mm-hmm. So the Skarsgårds, right? I guess we can get into this. The Skarsgårds, there's like 4 of them. There's Stellan, who's their dad.
Okay.
And he's the guy that's in Thor. He's like the scientist guy in the first 2 Thor movies.
I didn't see any of the first 2 Thor
That's
movies.
okay. You know, he's also in a bunch. He's in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
You'd recognize him if you saw him.
Right.
Alexander Skarsgård is Bill Skarsgård's brother. And he's the son of Stellan Skarsgård. He is in Tarzan. He's like the lead guy in that new Tarzan with Margot Robbie. We saw that.
Oh, we did see that.
That's the one where he breaks the thing with his neck muscles. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. That was
pretty
cool.
I actually like that movie.
That was a very good movie.
He's also in The Northman. I don't know if you saw that.
Nope.
There's another Skarsgård brother, I think, and then there's Bill, who is in Pennywise. Or he was in Pennywise. He was Pennywise in It, and then he was in this as the Marquis de Gramont. Wow. Very diverse group of actors. A Swedish powerhouse.
Yeah, he's a good actor.
He is a good actor.
He's a fantastic actor.
If you watch this and then you watched It, I don't think you would be able to recognize him. Like, he kind of disappears completely into that clown makeup.
Yeah, I was going to say, because, like, the clown makeup and then, like, the CGI to make him look freaky as shit.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I was so surprised that that was him, because I was like, huh?
Yeah, and I was discussing with my wife. I have this like little game I play with myself with certain actors. I'm like, are they handsome? Like, is this guy handsome? You know, and I have my own sense of like who's handsome or not. You know,
right.
But it's like I can't tell with him. I'm like, like from certain angles, I'm like, he's good looking.
Yeah.
But from other angles, I'm like,
he's a little tiny. I don't know. I couldn't nail him down in this movie because
not his value, but
there were a couple moments where I was like, damn, he's rocking that suit.
Yeah, he's very good looking.
Oh yeah,
the fashion in this movie is like a character off the chain.
Oh my god.
We'll talk about certain characters who have really well defined fashion senses, but
whoever the costume designer was on this movie, bravo! I applaud you.
Yes,
that's so good.
And I can't remember her name. She's a pretty famous fashion and costume designer.
Okay.
But there's an article, I think it's on Variety, about like all his different suits, like Bill Skarsgård's different suits. And I didn't get a chance to read it because I didn't want to spoil the movie for myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, go check that out if you're interested in the fashion of this movie at all. But to continue on with some of the more technical stuff, so this is the longest John Wick film. It came in at 2 hours and 49 minutes. I would say you don't necessarily feel that length. I think it's pretty breezy, but definitely pretty long. Currently, it sits at 95% critical score on Rotten Tomatoes, and shockingly, 95% audience score. So it's like they're, right neck and neck.
Everybody's in agreement.
Yep. And finally, the synopsis from IMDb, in case you have no idea. John Wick uncovers a path to defeating the High Table. But before he can earn his freedom, Wick must face off against a new enemy, with powerful alliances across the globe and forces that turn old friends into foes. So that's kind of the basic plot of the film. But before we get deeper into it, what did you think of it?
Yeah, that was really, really good. I think it was really well done. All the new characters that we got, fantastic. I think 2's still my favorite. But like this one, I think gave it a run for its money.
Yeah.
Just because like the camera work in some of these scenes was so like unique. Yeah. And like new. And then like the action, phenomenal as always. And I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think it's funny because like going into this, my ranking of the movies was 2, 1, 3. So, and I thought for, most of the runtime, I was like, I think this one might sit somewhere in the middle. But I think by the end, it's kind of like completely shaken my like order. And I think now it might be 1, 4, 3, 2. Like, I think 2 might have dropped, like, all the way to the bottom. And I'm not sure. I think it's just the way that this movie, like, ups the scale and kind of, like, really just goes for broke. Like,
balls to the walls.
Balls to the wall. Like, they kind of, like, just exhaust every idea and possibility. I think it just, I don't know. Now when I think back on it, I'm like, 2, while I really love it and I think it's really creative and fun and it's kind of like added, a new layer to the mythology. To me, that one feels less consequential, I guess, when you look at it in the kind of the whole scope. Yeah. But
yeah, because the stakes in this one were, I think, the highest.
They are the highest, yeah.
Because in 1 he's just pissed because they killed his dog. 2. Stakes were kind of high only because, they do the marker thing.
Right, yeah.
It's really when, at the end of 2, right, that's when the stakes actually start, like, coming into play. Because now, like, he's excommunicated and people are out to hunt him and all this kind of stuff. And then 4 just is the full... It feels that this, like, each movie is its, like, own, like, little story. Yeah. But... And they have their own, like, climax and ending. But I think they did a really good job of making the entire 4 movies, like, this really great story. Yeah. That climaxes in, I would say, like, end of 3, start of 4. Yeah. Right? And then it finishes off. And so it's a really well-told story.
Yeah, I think so. And I think this one kind of, like, it breaks the curse of, like, 4th movies. Yes. Because oftentimes movies are kind of imagined as, like, trilogies. Yeah. Where it's, like, you think about, like, Toy Story. Like, even though I like Toy Story 4, it does feel, like, tacked on almost, Or, like, like Thor 4. I don't know if you saw it. But it, like... That one, everybody's got their issues with that movie, but I think one of the big issues is that, like, it feels like this, like, footnote as opposed to, like, being a part of the bigger story. But I think what's kind of interesting about the John Wicks, when you look at them now, it feels almost like 1 is, like, this, like, separate story, and then 2, 3, and 4 are kind of like the trilogy.
Yeah.
And so I think for that, it like works because it feels like the end to that. What starts in 2 kind of ends in 4.
Yeah.
And even though 1 kicks off the whole thing, I think you could watch 2, 3, and 4 without seeing 1, and you would get a whole story.
Yeah, you might be a little confused about some of the rules, although they do a good job of like explaining, especially like the rules in the Continental and just like this entire society as a whole. And so yeah, I totally agree. I think you could skip out on 1. Not that you shouldn't.
No, you should not.
1 is great.
Yeah.
1 is fantastic.
Yeah, and I think, because we're still in non-spoiler territory.
Yeah.
I think one thing we can talk about is like the new additions to the cast.
Yeah.
Without like spoiling like what their fates are necessarily.
You're right.
I think for me, everybody in this movie does a really good job, but for me, the standouts are definitely like Rina Sawayama, who plays Akira. Mm-hmm. Her physicality is incredible, and I was surprised to learn that she's not like a martial artist. She's a singer, but I was watching this interview with Chad Stahelski, the director, and Keanu, and they were talking about how when they were kind of coming up with ideas, they had this character in mind, and I think somebody brought Rina's music to Chad Stahelski and was like, check out this like girl, and he was like, she's a really good dancer. And fight choreography on film is a lot like dancing because it's like remembering a routine and it's, you got to be flexible and have all this stuff. And I think she's just great. I mean, her performance aside, like her physicality is just amazing. Yeah. Like you totally buy her as this like, martial artist, like archer kind of character. Like there's never a moment where I'm like, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, I know. There were like some of the things that she did, I was like, oh goddamn, right? Like especially when she was using the bow. Yeah, I was like, Jesus Christ. That's one thing in this movie is like the hits in this movie. I think were some of the most brutal. We've seen. I was probably spending a good like 50% of the movie just like cringing, and not like in a oh that's cringy. I was just like cringing away because I could just feel the hits as they were coming. Because they were just so fucking
You were very vocal during this.
Yeah, it was fucking crazy.
It's crazy, yeah.
It was insane. But yeah, no, she was wonderful. Knowing that she's a dancer and then looking back on the movie, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense, yeah. She does this one... so one thing I was kind of surprised about when I was watching the movie, the majority of the trailer footage comes from like the first hour of the movie. And I thought like certain things would be like the finale that kind of come up like very early. And the movie I think does a good job of like keeping you in suspense. Yeah. But there's a moment and you see a little bit of it in the trailer where she's like fighting these like masked like assailants. And she does this move where she like flips over a guy, but then she does like the splits and like shoots somebody. Yeah. And it was like that was one of the moments where I was like, whoa.
Yeah, well, and was that the part where like she like kicked his leg too and he ended up doing the splits?
Yes,
and that
it's super cool. It's very impressive.
Very well done.
One thing I think this holds this movie for me above like 2 and 3 is you can tell they had a lot of time to think about like the choreography and to think about like the set pieces, because to me it does feel like the story feels natural, but I think if you're watching it from like an action movie perspective, you can see how they thought of like different sequences, because the movie's kind of, again, without spoiling it, like it's kind of broken up into like 4 big fight scenes. Yes. That have like a couple of parts in them, like they're kind of broken up into their own like mini fight scenes. Yeah. And you can just kind of see like the patchwork if you're paying attention to it. Like you can see, oh, they thought of doing this, they had the idea for this. But when you're watching it, you don't really notice. It's just like it's kind of fun to piece together like the ideas they had, and you can tell that they just spent, because it was supposed to come out. This movie was originally, so it was greenlit in 2020. Okay. Great year to just
fantastic
greenlight a movie. But it was originally going to come out 2021. It got pushed back to 2022, and then it got pushed back again because they didn't want to come up against Top Gun Maverick. So again, they had like this extra like 2 or 3 years to
just really iron
really iron it out, and I think you can tell it's just it's so polished.
It is. It's smooth.
It is very smooth.
There's like no really like big disconnect between scenes, and everything just melds so well together.
Yeah,
and I think they do a really good job of like introducing just like introducing all the new characters, and they do it in such a way that like you're not lost, and you're not trying to keep up, because they introduce them and they give them like the what the fuck is his name with the dog?
Oh, the tracker.
Yeah, like they give him like a good amount of time to like establish himself. They don't just go, oh yeah, here's this guy and now we're doing other stuff. They they explain him. They let him do some stuff, and you go, aha, okay, I get it.
So, going back to the cast, I think he's my other favorite, because, I mean, okay, so, like, on the one hand, I love Donnie Yen.
Yes.
And he can do no wrong, and I think he's fantastic in this.
Yes.
But I think if I had to pick, like, a surprised me performance, like, standout, it would be the tracker.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know anything about him going in.
Yeah, no.
And he just, like, every time he's on screen, you're like, I fucking love this guy.
Yeah, he was really cool. And I like that we got another movie with one of these sort of, like, assassin-type people that hunts with a dog.
Yes, yeah.
I love that shit.
And the dog is so well used. Like, it's one of the problems that people have with 3 is that scene where Halle Berry has the 2 dogs, and they're, like, fighting all the people. And I think that scene does go for, like, too long, and there's probably too much dog stuff in that. But in this one, I think it's, like, just enough.
Yes.
It's, like, there's really creative use of the dog. Without spoiling it, I think they put the dog in enough danger that you're, like, scared at times for it.
Oh, yeah. There was a couple of points where I was like, I swear to God, if this dog dies, I'm gonna lose it. It was a very cute dog.
It is a very cute dog. And I think... And his name is... Shamir Anderson. Okay. I think he's great. He's just he totally pulls off that character. Like, he's mysterious, but, like, he's funny. Yeah. And he's, like, he always seems like he's in control of, like, the situation. Like, he never feels like he's one of the only characters who, like, he gets a one-up on John a couple of times. Oh, yeah. And it's, like, you know, he's obviously very intelligent. I also think he had a very unique, like, fighting style.
He did, yes.
Because he's got kind of this, like, American boxer-like thing. You know, he's, like, throwing right hooks, and he's, like, got this kind of, like, Muhammad Ali stance that I really liked.
And his gun, his, like, signature gun is this, like futuristic, like, almost like Winchester.
Yeah,
right?
It is.
It's this,
cool.
like, it's this pump action, like, by the trigger sort of gun that he, like, attaches a barrel to.
Yeah, it's super cool.
And it's just a really good gun. And and, like, not only does he get, like, a one-up on John, like, he gets a one-up on the fucking villain multiple times.
Multiple times, yeah.
Which, just, again, adds to his, like, intelligence. Like, this guy is super smart.
He is. And, I just think, like, he was the biggest surprise for me. Yes. I thought he was going to be, like, a bit player, but he kind of plays a pretty major role, and he's he's great. He's
fantastic.
And then, of course, Donnie Yen is the other new character. He's great. He's just... Yeah. He has one fight sequence in particular that I think, like, blew my mind. Just, I won't spoil what happens until later. Right. But there's one sequence in particular where he does something that's fantastic. And I think... So I was thinking about this, right? Because, like, he plays a blind guy in this, which... If you watch the trailers and pay attention, you'll figure that out. But I'm dumb and I didn't realize that. And I think what's good about him was he made a really interesting choice in this, where he's clearly a guy who was made blind somewhat recently. Because he has this, like, physicality where he's always, like, reaching out and grabbing things. what I thought was interesting is like they don't treat him like Daredevil, where he's like he's blind but he just acts like a guy who can see.
Yeah.
He like acts like a guy who is blind.
Yeah.
Like he misses, like he doesn't always know where things are. Like there's moments where characters around him figure out he's blind and they stay silent so he doesn't know where they are. Like his performance is great and
it's so good.
It's hard to like top a Donnie Yen sort of thing.
Yeah.
But.
Well, and he also isn't like the Chirrut in Rogue One, right? Where, you know, he's connected to the Force, because that blind character didn't really miss.
Right.
Really at all. He was still kind of like having to like feel around, but he still had this like supernatural sort of air about him.
Right.
But in both, in that performance and this one, he played a very good blind person.
He does. He does a great job.
Yeah.
I get the sense he just likes to play blind guys.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about, but good on him, I guess.
I mean, he's good at it.
Oh, he's fantastic at it.
One of the other new main characters is a guy we've talked about before. It's Scott Adkins.
Yes.
He plays Killa in this, who... I don't really want to spoil like what his role is, but without saying too much, he's like a German gangster.
Yeah.
And he's a rotund gentleman.
Yes.
And he's great.
He is. He plays Gollum.
Huh?
He plays in Lord of the Rings?
No. So Scott Adkins, he's the villain in Yip Man 4.
Right. Yes.
He's the British guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
okay, now I remember.
Yeah, he and in this he's the big German guy with the gold teeth.
Yes.
He's chewing a lot of scenery.
Yeah.
I think he does a good job. I think that's a very interesting portrayal.
Yes.
I think it's very comedic at times. I like that he's just cackling the whole time.
The entire time, and then hitting his inhaler occasionally. Yeah.
To me, that performance, this won't mean anything to you, but it feels very inspired by Sammo Hung, he's this famous Chinese martial artist. He's a big figure in the Hong Kong world, but he's a rotund gentleman.
Yeah.
Who can also do spin kicks, which is it's just fun to watch.
Oh yeah.
I mean, but he also, like, his accent and stuff kind of reminds me of like, and I think he even said it was inspired by like the villain in Raiders of the Lost Ark, like that like cartoonish kind of German accent.
Yeah.
Again, I won't spoil what role he plays, but it's good. He's not in it that much, but for the time he's in it, I think he steals the show.
Yeah, well, and he's not one of these characters that like is shoehorned in. Like he's there for a reason.
Yeah,
and they make use of that. Yeah, and it's very cool.
He is, and he. I feel like at times he feels like he's in a different movie. Yes. But I don't think that's a bad thing. I think he brings a bit of like diversity to because all the assassins in John Wick kind of have this like suave, like coolness to them. Yes. And I think it's interesting to have a guy who's like a sweaty, like horrible mess. Yeah. But he's also got this like skill about him. Yeah. I found that performance kind of fun, but
he was great. It was really fun.
I think that's all the new characters. Well, there's also Hiroyuki Sanada who plays Akira's father. Yeah. He's good. He's not in it a ton, but I mean, that guy, you just put him in anything, and you're just like, oh, there he is. Instant win. Yeah. Most people recently probably know him as he's like the Yakuza like chief guy in Bullet Train.
Oh, that's why he looks familiar.
He's also in the new Mortal Kombat. He plays Scorpion in that. And then he's in 47 Ronin.
Nope. I've never seen that.
He's in a bunch of stuff. He's in Avengers Endgame. He plays like the Yakuza leader he tends to play a Yakuza guy, but he gets killed by Hawkeye at there's that weird section where they're trying to show that Hawkeye is cool now. Yeah. And he like kills a Yakuza guy for some reason.
I'm going to be honest. I have forgotten Endgame because it was forgettable.
It's okay.
I really liked his performance too. Oh, fuck, I'm tired. Hold on. Whoa. Dizzy.
Don't pass out.
Okay.
Okay, I was going to say, you'd be the first person to ever pass out doing a podcast.
Yeah. Okay. No, he was wonderful. I wish he was in it a little more, just because I really, I wish we had met him like in some of the other movies, because I think he was just a really cool guy.
Yeah.
I also really like, because he was I don't know if that's spoily, but he was like the manager of the
that's not a spoiler.
Osaka
Continental.
I love that Continental.
It's very cool.
It was gorgeous.
Because they spend I can't spoil how much of the movie. There's a good bit of the movie that's set in Japan.
Yes.
And it just looks beautiful.
So
yeah, but it's so cool. Like just the way that Continental is laid out. It's like so distinct from the New York one.
Yep.
Like it looks completely different, but it still has just a great sense of like style and it's almost like cyberpunk. Like it's very like neon and it's got that blend of like traditional Japanese art and modern stuff. Yeah. Yeah, it's super cool.
It just reinforces me wanting to go to Japan.
Oh yeah. Who doesn't?
I just want to go so bad.
Yeah.
He was great.
He is great. I think we're approaching when we're going to have to start talking about spoilers, because it's hard to talk about it without spoiling it. One thing I think we can talk about without spoiling like how they resolve themselves or anything. We could talk about the action.
Yes.
Like you said, for the most part, I think it's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard hitting.
Yeah.
There's one sequence. It's hard. There's two sequences for me that stand out, and without spoiling like where they occur or how they resolve. Yeah. There is one sequence with the piss. I can't remember what it's called. It's the big turn circle in Paris.
The Arc de Triomphe.
Arc de Triomphe, yeah. Yeah. There is an action you see a little bit of it in the trailer, but there's an action sequence that takes place on the Arc de Triomphe. Yeah. And it's a lot of people getting hit by cars. Yeah.
It was like real life Frogger.
It is real life Frogger, and it's phenomenal.
It was so good. It is so creative.
It's creative.
Just how they like... How they just had everybody moving. Yeah. And just the like flow of the fight. Yeah. It was just so good.
And it's very tense.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, and like you said, so many people getting hit by cars. Yes. I was like, I feel like that should have just killed more of people. But they just kept getting up.
But then there's another action sequence that for me stood out, which is a Dragon's Breath shotgun.
Oh my god.
And it's kind of filmed top down, like video gamey style, which I thought would be gimmicky, but it's very well done. Yeah. And it's very impressive. Yeah. And it's super fun.
That gun, I think I was just in awe. Yeah. The entire time that thing was being fired. Yes.
And I will say this movie's not super gory. Like you don't see a ton of like blood and guts. No. But it is pretty brutal seeing those people lit on fire and shot.
Because like when you play video games where you have like a shotgun that does fire damage or whatever, it's cool. Mm-hmm. But there was just something about this gun in particular. And I'm wondering if it was because it was shooting fire, that it made it more brutal. Because every time somebody got shot by it, right? So when you get shot, like when you see somebody get shot with just like a normal shotgun, right? Mm-hmm. You see like the bullets hit, but nothing else. Mm-hmm. With this, the guy would get hit, and then you would see everything just like continue through his body. Yeah. It was just like fire. Yeah. And then after they were hit, their just body was on
fire.
On fire. and smoldering, and it was spectacular.
It is spectacular.
I wanted to shoot that gun so bad.
Yeah, it's super cool. I think because what puts like a lot of like what I'm loving about like the modern trend in action movies that aren't like big budget superhero stuff is there is like this emphasis on like using real stunt actors and stuff. So the whole time I was watching that, I was like, how many stuntmen did they set on fire?
And like just how much like pyro stuff. Like, what was the budget for that?
The pyrotechnic budget was just like half the movie's budget.
And
it's also that sequence is very funny. Like there's because I think one thing the John Wick movies don't get enough credit for is their sense of humor. Like there is this kind of grim like gallows humor to the whole thing, but there's also these moments because this movie, part of what inspires it is like Buster Keaton, like silent movie kind of, comedy. Yeah. And there's moments in that sequence which like are very funny. Like there's one shot where, because it's from top down, you can kind of see everything as it's like moving through the sequence. And there's a moment where John shoots a guy. So he's on fire and you see him go off screen. And then John moves down and the guy like wanders back onto screen, still on fire. Yeah. And it's like, and then he shoots him again. And it's like, it's such a good little like gag because you're like, oh, there he goes.
And he's back. Yep. Yeah, no, that was very funny. And I think overall, a lot of the like ways that people got hit or got shot or whatever, like they weren't hamming it up. I think because I think a lot of the, like, especially getting shot with that shotgun in particular, that's just how your body would move. Yeah. Right? And then when they're getting hit with, like, blunt objects and all that kind of stuff, that's just, I think, how a human body moves when that happens. Yeah. And, yeah, it's the gallows humor because, like, some of it was just, like, I laughed out loud. I was like, oh, fuck. And it was just a little funny. Yeah. And, and it plays throughout all of the movies where, like, just people get hit in the most ridiculous ways. And it just happens to be funny.
Yeah. It is funny.
So.
But I think that's all I can say without spoiling the movie.
Yeah.
So before we move on to the next section, let's give our rating now. I think for anybody who's kind of on the fence about seeing it, if we haven't convinced you thus far, what would you rate it out of 10?
9.1.
Nice.
Yep, 9.1 out of 10.
Okay.
It did move by pretty quick, and I think watching it at Flick's Brewhouse helped. Yes. I think if we had seen it anywhere else, I think it would have been a little rough, just because it is so long. And I think towards the end, I could kind of feel like the length. Yeah. But like not terribly, and so that's why I'm docking some points. And then, some of the dialogue seemed a little corny. Yeah. But it's whatever. But yeah, 9.1. Okay. Mainly for length. Okay. But that's not a bad thing. Like you said, it moves by pretty quick.
Yeah, I agree. For me, I'm with you, but I'm also a little bit. I'm gonna say like 8.8. Okay. And my main criticisms are along the same lines. Like I think it's a little long because there's definitely like, I hate to say that there's an action sequence that goes too long, but there is.
Well, there's that museum scene.
The museum scene is very long, and I think there's maybe one. You could cut a few minutes out of that, I think.
Like the whole first part of it.
Well, okay, but I do want to talk about that. I don't want to spoil that, because if you haven't seen the movie, I don't want to spoil what we're talking about. But yeah,
it's very funny.
It's very funny. But actually, what I was talking about though was there's that scene towards the beginning in that like armor room with the nunchucks and stuff.
Oh yeah.
I think that scene goes a little too long. Just a little bit.
That's fair.
And I think the Arc de Triomphe scene also goes a tiny bit too long. But yeah, that's my main thing. The other thing is that I can't really get into it until we talk about spoilers. But one thing is that there is a scene with some very shoddy CGI. Which, if you weren't paying attention, you probably didn't notice, but there's a scene where some people are standing outside, but parts of it look like it was shot on a green screen because they couldn't get the time of day that they wanted. So, to me, that scene felt... I was distracted by, like, the CGI, which I never want. Like,
right.
For the most part, I don't, CGI doesn't really bother me, but if it's starting to distract me, that's when it kind of bothers me, and it looked a little Phantom Menace-y.
Okay.
Which is just, again, it's a minor thing. Like, overall, I think it's you would not, this is the kind of movie that you should go see at a theater. Like, yes. Not that you'll lose anything watching it at home, but like if you're gonna go see a movie like this, you should go see it on as big a screen as you can. Just because it's like it's fantastic.
It's very good, very visually pleasing.
And if you want more movies like this, you should go watch it at the theater because that's the only way they're gonna make more stuff like this. Is if you support it.
Yeah.
And yeah, shout out to Flicks Brewhouse in Albuquerque. If you're gonna go see a movie and you want to eat waffles while you do it, you should go.
We went at 10 a.m. I got French toast and a beer.
Yes,
it was awesome. And then I got some cheese curds. Fucking awesome.
I had some breakfast tacos and some cookies. Like a grown ass man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If you have. Because you might not like have a Flicks near you, but if you have any sort of theater where you can order food during the movie and they just bring it to your seat, and it's like actual like food, do it. Just go there.
I mean, and if you're like me, where you don't go to the movies every weekend, like I only go to the movies when it's like something I really want to see.
Yeah.
Just go all out.
Treat yourself.
Treat yourself. Get some waffles or French toast or whatever.
A burger.
Get a burger.
If you are local to Albuquerque or you have a Flicks near you, they have a burger. I forget the name of it, but it's like brisket, pulled pork. It's like all of these like barbecue, like classic barbecue meats all slammed into one fucking burger with crispy onions on it. You will either orgasm to death or have a heart attack.
Good.
It's amazing.
Yes.
It's one of the best burgers ever. So, yeah, go to Flicks Brewhouse or anything similar.
Yeah.
Because it's awesome.
Yeah. But, okay, so from here...
Spoilers.
If you haven't seen the movie, stop listening.
Yeah.
Unless you don't mind being spoiled.
Yeah.
But...
then fuck off.
Fuck off.
Don't fuck off. I'm sorry.
No, don't fuck off.
Yeah. Go watch the movie for almost 3 hours and then come back and listen to this.
Yes. Once again, we are spoiling the movie. If you message me and say that we spoiled the movie for you, I'm going to call you an idiot because we've now said it like 5 times.
Yeah, we gave you a warning.
We are spoiling the movie from here.
Yes. Everything from this point on
is a spoiler. Yes. Anyway, John Wick dies.
Yeah. Yeah. Huge bummer.
Big bummer.
Yeah, I was hoping he didn't die.
Yeah, or does he?
He does die.
He does.
Yeah,
he does.
They bury him.
They do. But technically, he does say, who knows where he is? So, they do leave it open.
True.
That being said, I'm doing a little dance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's just spoil the fuck out of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, he dies.
Yes, he does. Which makes sense because this is the last John Wick movie.
It does. Well, what's hard about it? So, yeah. One of my criticisms is that if I think about the movie too hard, it makes me sad because, which, movies make me sad, but more in the sense that, like, his efforts almost feel meaningless.
Yeah.
Because the whole point is that he's, like, in this fight so that he can be free.
Yeah.
And then he's free and then he dies. Yeah. And to me, that's like, oh, that's kind of sad.
Yeah.
And then you could think to yourself, oh, well, he dies, but at least, like, Kane is free.
Yeah.
But then it's also implied in the post-credit scene that he gets knifed.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, so it just means nothing.
It's all for moot.
It's all for nothing.
Yeah.
Which, I guess I shouldn't criticize it because that's kind of the point of the movie.
Yeah.
Like, the idea that, like, violence is cyclical and these circles of vengeance will never end, right? Because, if Rina or Akira kills Kane, right?
Yeah.
Well, Kane's daughter's probably just going to come for her, and then it's just like, this whole idea of, like, cyclical violence, which, like, okay, great. Your movie has a theme.
Congratulations.
But it made me sad.
Yeah. Stop it.
It was a bummer. I didn't think he was going to die.
I know, neither did I. Because he told Winston, he was like, can you take me home? And Winston was like, yeah, absolutely, my guy. And then he, like, walks down the steps, he sits down, and then he, like, falls over. I was like, he just, like, passed out because he got shot 3 times.
That's what I thought, too.
Yeah. And then it cuts to a graveyard.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, fuck.
Bummer.
Yeah. Because, I would have loved to see, like, it cut, and instead he's back in his house from the first movie.
Yeah.
And he's got his dog, and he's just living a normal life.
Yeah. I mean, I think they did that for a couple of reasons. The one I read was that somebody that asked the director, like, you know, something, and he was very blunt about, he's like, I think he said, where the fuck do you want it to end? But what I think what he meant was, and he explained, like, you know, we're talking about a man who, he doesn't really have anything left. Mm-hmm. Like, he's killed 300 people, presumably. Like, there's not really anywhere for it to end but with him dying. Like, at some point, you know, and the whole theme of the movie is this idea of consequences and you know, you pay for your crimes, right? Like, there's at some point he had to bite it, right? And, like,
yes.
I think that's part of it. I think the other part of it is they've done 4 of them, and I think they're like, we got to do something else at some point, right?
Yeah.
Like, the director, this is his 4th John Wick movie.
Yeah.
Keanu, I'm sure he's like a man in his mid-50s. He's like, can I take a break?
Yeah.
You know? And he said before, you know, he'll do it as long as they're successful. Like, he's always happy to do it or whatever. But I do get the sense that they're both like, we need a minute. Like, we need to pause, you know?
Well, and if you keep him alive, too, then people will expect more because they're like, oh, he's alive, so you can have another one. Mm-hmm. Even if you, like, you know, heavily say at the end of this last movie, like, oh yeah, he's never going back. He's free. He's never going back into life. People are like, well, he said that once before, and then he went back into the life.
Exactly.
And so I think killing him is like, yeah, he's dead, you motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Deal with it.
And I kind of like that in the sense that, like, I think this series had the potential to go on too long. Mm-hmm. Like, I think one thing that worried me initially was, back when they announced it, they said they were going to make 4 and 5 back to back, which to me was worrying because I never like when they do that because it's kind of like one of them always ends up feeling inconsequential. Yes. You know, because it's like, even if you're sitting through 4, you're like, well, there's going to be another one. So, like, there's no real stakes to it. Yeah. What I liked is that there was, like, an ending. Yes. Like, it feels good to just know that it's like, I don't know. You can appreciate there's closure, and you can appreciate it more. And I feel good knowing that they may explore other characters in that universe, and hopefully they do. But like,
yeah, which would be really cool.
It'd be really cool. But I'm happy for it to end there. Yes. Like, I think it's a good finale. Like, it's not. They went as big as they can go. Yeah. And that was it. And that's all I needed from it. Yeah. To be honest.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, and I mean, these movies are infinitely watchable.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's not really over because you can just watch it again.
Yeah, exactly. And I think some people were already kind of tired of, like, how they were kind of keeping the story going. I never felt that way, but I could see why you would find some frustration in, like, oh, he's, you know, lived through all this stuff, and, you know, how can he keep going? But, yeah, I think it's not a bad thing that he died. No. I think I would have liked for there to be some, like, hope at the end. But
yeah, no, they just straight up killed him.
Yeah, but that's okay. Yeah. I mean, they leave it open-ended. So if they did another one, I wouldn't be mad. Right. But at the same time, if they never do another one, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I am satisfied. Yeah, I have a coworker. I can't remember if it was one of my managers or what, but he said that he loved the first one and then hated 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Because, and this was I didn't really press because I was like, that doesn't make any sense. He said it was too sci-fi.
Huh?
Yeah. I was like, what? Do you know what sci-fi? It's science fiction.
Yeah.
There's no sci-fi in this.
No. I don't really.
Yeah, like, because I'm like trying to like run through 2 and 3 in my head, and 2 he's just hunting some Italian bitch, right? Yeah. And then 3 he's just on the run.
Yeah. No, I don't really.
Yeah.
I don't understand what your coworker's talking about.
I don't get it. And so I was like,
there's another character death in this. Well, there's a couple.
Well, yeah, there's a few.
The concierge dies very early.
Does, yeah.
Which was kind of spooky because
a little bit.
He died in real life.
Rest in peace.
I saw an article and it was like it did him dirty, but I don't think so. I think to me that. I mean, it's unfortunate that it happened.
Yes.
Because the Lance Reddick passed away, which I talked about in our mini-sode that I did by myself last week.
Oh, nice.
It's unfortunate that he had to die, but at the same time, it's not. I mean, the writers didn't know. Like, they didn't know he was going to die in real life, right? Yeah. And like they shot it, and it was done and finished and edited before he passed away. Like they had no idea of knowing.
Right.
But also, I feel like his death has a point in the movie.
Yes.
It raises the stakes, right? Like, it shows you anybody in this can die. Like, John can die, the manager can die.
Yeah.
And then I think it also was a nice tribute to him.
Yes.
Insofar as there is a lot of talk in the movie about, death and what death means, and a good life, leads to a good death.
Yeah.
And I think there is a touching moment that actually, like, made me tear up a little bit when I was watching it, where, he's talking about, like, he debated what to put on his gravestone.
Yes.
And at the end of it, he says, I ended up with just a good friend, know? And to me, that felt really touching, because in every story you read about Lance Reddick, it's just like, he's just a boss-ass bitch. Like, just, super cool and fun and just infinitely classy and game for anything.
Yeah. He's just a good
man, and it felt nice that was how his journey could end.
Yeah.
And his death is shocking in the movie, but it didn't feel dirty to me. Like, it didn't feel like, oh, how could they do that to him? Like, he got his moments, right?
He
like,
did, yeah.
A big plot point of 3 is him being a badass, Like,
right, yeah.
And I think that character has a lot of depth.
Yeah.
That it does mean something when he dies. Like, he's not just a B character who gets killed for whatever. Like, that character, you're so used to seeing him, and he's this, like, rock, for John and for the manager. And for him to be killed, it, like, adds something to the movie. Yeah, it sucks.
Because, like, he's the manager's, like, a right-hand man.
Yeah.
And that whole scene when they met the Marquis.
Yeah.
I didn't really see it coming, them killing him. I honestly thought they were going to kill Winston.
Yeah.
Or both.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think that they would just kill him, the concierge.
Yeah.
And it's just, like, brutal.
It is brutal. Shoots him right in the heart.
Yeah. and like, that was it. And I know they, it was all filmed and edited, and they had this idea, and they had no idea that he was going to pass in real life. But I think it's like, not only is it a good send-off for the character, I think it's a good send-off for Lance as well. Unintentionally.
Yes, yeah.
And I just, anytime they, like, sort of brought him up and they talked about him, and while they were at the memorial site and all that kind of stuff, I was like, man, I know they didn't intend for this, but they could just be talking about Lance here.
Yeah, it was kind of spooky. It was like, whoa.
Yeah, but I think it was good.
Yeah.
Did you see? There's like a couple articles about it, like all the because he voiced a character in Destiny.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
And all of the, like, Destiny players would go. They went to the NPC and they just like held a vigil. I thought that was really cool. I have one of my coworkers. He actually plays Destiny 2, and he participated in that.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. And
yeah.
So.
And he funny. I mean, he was a very interesting man. I talked about him a lot, so people have already heard this if they've listened to the bonus episode. But yeah, he what was cool about him was like he not only was in Destiny, but he was like a fan of it.
Oh yeah,
and he was literally playing the game like a day before he died. Like his last login, which is just like that sucks.
It does. It really does suck.
It sucks when it's never the person you want to die.
Yeah, I know. Like
it's like, oh, it could have been Mitch McConnell, like,
or
God
any other Republican.
Yeah, it had to be fucking him. But
yeah, right.
Anyway, yeah, his death was sad in the movie.
It's very sad.
Who else dies? Oh, Hiroyuki Sanada.
Yes.
Who is? I think his first name's Goji. Or Koji. Yeah, his death was sad.
Yes, and he was the father of
Akira.
Yeah.
That
was a big bummer.
It was a bummer. There was so I want to bring it back a little bit.
Yeah.
We were talking about there's a scene in the museum that I didn't want to spoil because I think it's a very funny joke.
It's hilarious.
Where Winston is walking and it just keeps going. He's walking for a good 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And there's a moment where you're like, oh my God, he's still walking.
I know, we both just started laughing because it was like the most ridiculous thing. I was like, they really decided to keep this.
Yeah, it's dead silent. There's no music. It's just his footsteps.
Yep, there's no dialogue. He's just walking.
He's just walking for 30 seconds. And it's just all these pieces of giant art. And I know that the point of that scene is that the Marquis is this big, he's infinitely wealthy and, whatever. Yeah. But it's just so funny. It's just this gag that
it just keeps fucking
just
walking.
Keeps walking. That's what I mean. There's some really good humor in this that It always catches me by surprise when you watch one of these movies because you think of it as this super serious thing.
Right.
But then there's all these light moments that are really funny.
Yeah.
There's that moment where the Marquis is talking to Kane and he's like, remember, you're doing this for your daughter and whatever. And he's all, fuck off.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Or when John is trying to get to the dueling site, and everybody and anybody is just hunting this guy down.
Yeah.
And he's John Wick. He's getting there one way or the other.
Yep.
And he's just mowing down people.
Yep.
And the Marquis calls Mr. Nobody.
Yeah.
And is like, okay, yeah, I need your help. And Mr. Nobody's like, all right, 30 million.
Yep.
And he's like, that's not what we agreed on. He's like, well, tough shit. And just hangs up.
Yeah.
and he and the Marquis just laughs and slams him. And then he uses a fucking rotary.
Yeah.
To call him back. Call him back and be like, okay, fine. Yes, 30. And he's like, no, it's up to 40 now.
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought that was wonderful.
And that's what we were talking about earlier about Mr. Nobody getting one up on the fucking villain.
Yeah.
Mr. Nobody knew that he was the best chance for the Marquis.
Yeah.
And so he used that to his advantage to get as much money out of this guy.
Yeah.
And the Marquis knew that, and no threat that he could make against Mr. Nobody really worked.
Yeah.
Because it's Mr. Nobody, again, knew that the Marquis needed him.
Yeah.
There was really nobody else aside from Kane, right? And Mr. Nobody, or the Marquis already had Kane sort of in his back pocket.
Right.
And there was an actual threat for Kane, which was his daughter.
Yeah.
And so now the one thing I will say is that knife scene with Mr. Nobody.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, that I was like, dude,
gnarly.
just pull the fucking thing out. Just swallow your fucking pride and just pull the fucking knife out.
Yeah.
You don't need to be pulling your hand. Ugh.
Yeah, that was nasty.
As somebody who has stabbed their hand.
That still was not as gross as the scene in 3 where that lady pulls her toenail off.
Well, yeah.
That was a little grosser, but...
That was pretty nasty.
There's a couple... I mean, the physical gags are always there, but there is one that felt very Buster Keaton, very, Charlie Chaplin kind of silent film where he gets to the top of the stairs and then that guy kicks him and he just goes all the way down. Yep. And there's a moment where you're like, oh, he's up. Oh, and he's down.
Yep. And he gets all the way to the bottom. And I'm like, yeah, he just kept rolling. And all I could think was, they see me rolling. And he gets all the way to the bottom. And there's like a moment when he gets to the bottom where he just sort of like, ugh.
Yep.
And you're almost thinking, yeah, he's going to quit. Yeah. He's not going to make it.
I would have quit.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I would have quit when I got kicked off a 5-story building.
Yeah.
He falls off a lot of stuff.
He does. And I'm like, how are you not just shattered at this point?
I don't know.
Now, because by the time he actually does get to the dueling grounds, he has fallen off of pretty much everything.
Yeah.
And he's gotten, like, what I'm assuming is no sleep.
Yeah.
And so when he gets finally to the top of the fucking stairs, you can tell he's a little busted.
Yeah.
And he's, like, kind of wobbling, you know. And then he has to duel some jackass. Well, he doesn't even duel the jackass.
Yeah.
He duels Kane, who helped him get to the top of the stairs.
Yeah.
I thought that was also very funny, where I think it was after like the first or second shot. I think it was after the second shot and they were at 10 paces. Winston like walks up to him and just goes, just kill him.
Yeah.
Like, please. And so that was another one of those kind of funny moments.
I did like, because I didn't know how they were going to resolve the duel, right? Because I thought like, oh, I don't know, like it would feel weird if he just killed Kane, like it would feel weird. And I did like, it's one of those moments where like if you're paying attention, you'll see where it's going to go.
Yeah.
Because when they do their third shot, you only hear one shot.
Yes. Yeah.
But like you don't realize it at first.
Yeah.
Like you know, they make a point of every time you're just looking at John, right?
Yeah.
And you hear the two shots, and then you know it's like,
yeah.
And that third time you're like, he missed, right?
Yeah.
You're like, how could he miss? And then, you know, Bill Skarsgård, the Marquis, is like, give me the gun, like I want to do the final shot, right? And there's that moment where he's like, you idiot, he never shot his gun, and then he just bang pops him in the head.
Right, like right between the eyes.
You're like, well, fucking of course. Like,
yeah, exactly. Well, and because I noticed that he hadn't fired.
Yeah.
Because at that third shot, you see Kane fire, and you see like blood sort of come out of John.
Yeah.
And I noticed he didn't fire his gun, and so I just thought he didn't get it off fast enough.
Yeah.
Because he dropped, and so I was like, well, that's it. You know, and I did think that he was going to die right there. And I was a little surprised. I was like, it was only until the Marquis was like, oh, let me do the coup de grace or whatever. Yeah. Right? It started to click, and I was like, he's being a little too cocky. Something's going to happen. There's going to be something. Like, this can't end this way. And then Winston was like, you dumbass. Yeah. Like, he didn't fire his gun. And then I think that might have been one of the most badass lines in this movie. John just says consequences and nails him.
And I think the funniest moment in the whole movie is right afterward. You cut to the tracker and he's like, you motherfucker.
Yeah. I love that the tracker was there and just like enjoying the show. Yeah. You know, I think it would have been funny had he just had like a thing of popcorn. Yeah. Just gone for it.
That, to me, felt very The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Yeah. Like, just the standoff and the shootout.
Yeah. I love, too, that he gave his dog beer.
Yes, that was very funny. Yeah, it's a fitting end.
Yes.
One other action sequence I didn't want to spoil is, so there's the assault on the Osaka Continental.
Yes.
And we see that Kane is kind of like standing off to the side, like he's eating noodles, like he's just chilling. Yeah. And they're like, you got to get your ass in there. And he's like, fine.
All right.
And there's that moment where he starts like sticking things.
Yes.
You know, and you're like, what is he doing?
Yeah, I thought it was like explosive.
That's what I thought. But you can, like, if you're watching, you can tell he's like feeling for metal. Yeah. And then he's like sticking because they're magnets. And you're like, huh. And then the first time one goes over and you realize it's a motion sensor, you're like, oh, he's fucking blind. Of course.
Yeah. Speaking of I thought this was a very tough moment. They're playing cards with Killa.
Yeah.
And right, it was 5-card draw. Everybody gets dealt their hand. Mr. Nobody lays his cards down first. John lays his down first. He's got a 2-pair
aces and eights.
Yep, aces and eights.
I'll talk about that in a second.
And then Mr. Nobody had I believe a royal flush. And then when Kane had to lay down his cards, he did the blind joke where he goes, and he like holds the cards just straight up to his face and like pretending like he's reading, and he goes, yeah, whatever. And he just tosses them down. And he still knew what it was, because I feel like he could count cards.
Probably.
Because Killa was like saying, I think, what everybody had. And so he was able to kind of count cards. And he nailed it. Yeah. And then, of course, Killa had a 5 of a kind. Yes. Which was stupid. Yeah. And so...
well, that's, that's the whole... the joke.
Yeah. But I love that moment because it felt very like... there's that scene where the gang is on Appa and they're flying through the desert. And Toph goes, oh, there it is. I see it. And everybody's like, oh, my God, where? and yeah, it's just that... yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of good blind jokes, but so I actually wanted to talk about that scene a little bit because so John's hand, what he gets are 2 8s and 2 aces. Yeah. Which here's a piece of trivia for you. Ooh. So that is a famous hand. Okay. And it's a trope that you'll see in a lot of like westerns, particularly, but you also see it in like James Bond movies and stuff. Okay. Where if people are playing poker, you can tell who's gonna die based on what hand they get. And so there's this hand, and it's the dead man's hand, which is a pair of aces and eights. And it's because I can't remember exactly his name, but there's this legend of this guy who died in the Old West, who was like a famous card player and was good at like, tricking people and stuff, and then he got killed, and the last hand he ever had was 2 aces and 2 eights. So gotcha. There's a little fun thing for you. If you're ever watching like a Western and you see somebody get aces and eights, you're like, they're going to die. They're dead. That's how I knew John was going to die, unfortunately. Because he even says, he's like, oh, you got the dead man's hand. And it's like, yeah, he's a goner.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah. Very cool. That's a fun fact for you. Speaking of Killa, he gets dropped on his head.
Oh my God.
Which is really brutal.
That was like the crunch. Yeah. Shout out to the sound designer.
Oh, yeah.
Because that might have been one of the worst crunches ever. And just like the way his body folded. Like it was just
gruesome.
It was so grotesque.
It's really bad.
It was funny.
It is funny.
I laughed. That fight was very interesting because I didn't know how they were going to do it. But Killa was a heavy hitter.
He's a heavy man, yeah.
Dude, I thought John was just gonna die right there.
Yeah.
Cause like some of the punches that he was getting, and like especially when Killa threw him over the fucking edge.
Oh yeah.
I was like, God damn. And then he just gets dropped in his head, and the expression he had on his face when he had died,
just pure joy,
was just hilarious. And then that scene ends, I think, just as brutally because John gets over top of him because John was asked by the Russian people,
the Ruska Roma,
to kill Killa because he had killed the father of the whoever. I forget her name. I forget all the names. They're Russian. Russian names are hard. You just cram some consonants together and call it a day. Yeah. And so they were like, yeah, you need to bring back proof of death. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know what he's going to do. My first thing was like, oh, because there was like a lot of axes being thrown around. I was like, oh, he's just going to chop his head off, right? That makes the most sense. Whatever. See it all the time. No. He drops him on his head. He goes down, straddles him, grabs his collar, punches him in the teeth like 4 times, and then rips out a tooth.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, what the fuck, John?
Yep. It's gnarly.
Yeah. I was like, you could have just like cut his head off or something. But yeah, it was, that whole fight scene was brutal.
It is brutal. What's kind of cool, so apparently Keanu is known for giving like rap party gifts to like people.
Oh yeah.
And there's an interview with Scott Adkins again on the Kung Fu Movie Guide podcast, where he was talking about, this was way before the movie was coming out, so he couldn't say much.
Yeah.
But he was talking about like, he's like, yeah, Keanu gave gifts to everyone, and he was talking about how like he gave all the stuntmen like watches, like that was his big thing. But the gift he gave Scott Adkins was a hatchet. And he gave him like one of the hatchets that they use on
cool.
set. So
nice.
Scott Adkins has that with him. But I was like, I wonder what that's about. And then now watching the movie, I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
like,
that makes sense.
But yeah, that whole scene was a lot of fun. It's
was.
reminiscent of the club scene from the first one.
Yes.
But different. I mean, it's different enough that it's interesting.
Right. During that whole fight scene, there were a couple moments I found myself just looking at the dancers, like the partying people, because man, some of those people were just going for it.
They were just vibing.
Yeah, and like they didn't notice like at all what was happening.
Yeah.
And either that was because they were told not to.
Yeah.
Or in directing, the director went, so yeah, you guys are probably on copious amounts of whatever drug is readily available at one of these things.
Yeah.
Making it so that whatever's going on, you're like, whatever.
Yeah.
Right? You're just so loosey-goosey that it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, some of those dancers, man, they were getting into it.
They were. Oh, the scene with the nunchucks is great.
Oh. That was... yeah, it was very funny because it was clear that, like, John Wick didn't really know how to use nunchucks because he ended up using them a lot as like a baseball bat.
Yeah, he just whacks people with them. Yeah.
He would like two-hand it and then just like wallop a guy in the face.
There's a great moment where he's got them, but he's got them like chopsticks almost.
Yeah.
Like he's got one like down and then he's got one like between his fingers.
Yeah.
He's like jabbing a guy with it.
Yeah.
And I was like, John, what are you doing?
Yeah, like you gotta like swing it around. No, I love that scene. It was very funny.
I do. Oh, they bring the motif of the pencil back.
Oh yes.
So one guy we didn't really talk about. He's kind of like he's the Marquis like heavy. His name's Chidi.
Yeah.
That guy's played by Marco Zaror, who is he's a Chilean martial artist.
Oh, okay.
He actually has a movie coming out this year. I think it's not Flight of the Condor. I can't remember. Something of the Condor.
Right.
He's pretty famous in martial arts circles because he's just like he's a big bruiser. He's great. He's real fast.
Yes.
I don't know if you saw.
Oh no, I was surprised. I was like, damn, this dude's quick.
He can move. Yeah. But he gets stabbed with a pencil.
Yep.
So they brought that back.
Yeah.
I think every movie has had a kill with a pencil.
So yeah. Which I thought that's very cool.
Yeah, it's a fun motif.
Speaking of fast, Donnie Yen is notorious for Yip Man.
Yeah.
And there's a thing that Yip Man does, which is that really
quick
the
multi-punch.
Multi-punch. When he pulled that out,
yep.
I was like, yes.
Yeah, he chain punches a dude. It's super cool.
Yeah, it was very cool.
I do like. I don't know why. I think it's because I'm so used to him as Yip Man. It's so funny to hear him curse. I don't know why it's funny.
I know.
But like, he calls people motherfucker a few times. And there's one great line where in Mandarin he says "lights out, assholes," which I thought was great because he throws a flashbang.
Oh yes.
That was a great sequence.
That's very funny.
Go ahead.
Let Donnie Yen cuss more because I think it's very funny.
It is very funny. Just the way he pronounces curse words, I think, is great.
Yeah.
But what I liked about him too, we were talking about how his like blind acting. I like that he doesn't know where he's shooting. Like, he vaguely knows. Yeah. But there's a lot of scenes where he's just shooting in, like, a circle.
It's just general area. And he's hoping that he'll get somebody.
Yeah.
Because there's, like, the scene in that, like, armor place with the nunchucks where John and Kane are both on the ground and they're just shooting at each other.
Yeah.
And they stop because I think they're, like, out of bullets or something. And it's, like, quiet. And Kane, like, gets up and he like steps through this glass pane. He's like, "John, are you dead?"
Yeah.
Because he was just blindly
firing. Like how would he know?
Yeah.
That's what I mean. I like that he's not like a superhero.
Yeah.
Like he's just a guy who knows how to kill people who is blind. Yes. Like, and he's pretty good, but he's still blind. Like he doesn't know where he's going.
No. I did like that his cane was a sword as well.
Oh, of course.
It was baller as fuck.
It was. I like too that when he stabs people, he just stabs them like enough times that he just knows they're dead. Like, he can't really take any chances, so he's just like.
It's like that knife game with your hand, except you hit your fingers instead.
Yeah. And I mean, it's something that he's always done, but I feel like it's more in this movie where John is willing to just throw his gun.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's very funny. Like
he threw so many things.
He throws so many things at people. Like, I love the John Wick fighting style of just whatever works. Like, if you shoot a man 4 times and he's not dead, hit him with the gun. Like,
because something's gonna get him dead.
And I like to because he gets this gun. I think it's called like a Viper.
Yes.
And part of one of the features of that gun is that if you take the slide off, it's got like a knife. Yeah. And he just stabs a guy with the slideless gun.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because it was given to him by I can't remember
the Bowery King.
The Bowery King. I want to call him Morpheus.
He's Morpheus. Yeah.
He knows John so well. Like he knows his audience because he like presents it to him.
Yeah.
And he highlights that where he's like, if you're in close quarters and you're in a bind, it has a hell of a bite, right? And I was like, I don't know what that means necessarily. Yeah. And then during that fight scene, he took the slide off and then started tapping. I was like, oh, it has a powerful bite. Okay, I get it. And he knew his audience, and he knew that John at some point was gonna run out of bullets. Yeah. And so he's like, here's a gun that once you run out of bullets, then becomes a knife. Yeah. So have fun.
Yeah. We didn't talk about him really, but what I love about the Bowery King is that he's crazy.
Oh yeah, he's just straight up.
I like that he's just monologuing to himself at the start of the film. Like he's just doing this Bible quote. Yep. And then he ends it by saying, "It's the motherfucking king."
Yeah. I love him. I'm so glad. Do you think? Well, if Keanu had any say in casting, I'm wondering if he was like, "Hey, can we get?"
Yeah, he was.
He was. Okay,
he was
good.
The reason he's in that.
Good. I'm glad that he was like, let's get the gang back together.
Yeah, I think because Lawrence Fishburne, he's one of those guys where he's criminally underused. Yes. Like I don't know if I've ever told the story. I met him once.
Really?
Yes. Very brief. This is not an interesting story, but without doxing myself, I work in a very touristy area in Albuquerque, and Lawrence Fishburne was here because he was filming MacGruber, which was that MacGyver parody that was on Peacock.
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't during COVID, but it was like it was like mid 2021. Okay. So they were still doing masks in New Mexico. And so a bunch of people were like, going in and out of where I work. And I think it was like Memorial Day or somewhere, so they weren't filming that day. Yeah. And this guy walked into the store that I work at, and he like looked around for a while, and I was like, that guy looks really familiar. And then he bought something, and he like came to the counter, and as soon as he talked, I was like, oh shit, that's him. Lawrence Fishburne. And I could see because like he had a mask on, but just from his eyes and from his voice, I was like, that's definitely him. Yeah. But I didn't bother him. I was just like, I checked him out or whatever, and I was like, yeah,
we'll see you.
See ya. And he left. I didn't acknowledge who he was, but
on the inside, you're like, oh my God.
I was like, oh my God, it's Lawrence Fishburne. That's happened a few times. Yeah. Where I've like met moderately famous people.
Oh yeah.
Just leave them alone for the most part. That would be if you're listening to this and you meet someone famous, just leave them alone.
Just leave them be. Unless you're doing like a meet and greet where it's like express. explicitly like you are meeting this person, you get to talk to him.
Yeah.
If you just see him out in the wild, just let him be.
Let him be. Yeah. Or like if you're in a situation where like, because I see this all the time, right? Like where someone's trying to do something.
Yes.
Right? Like if they're trying to get coffee or they're eating or they're at the store, let them finish.
Yes.
Then go ask them for a picture or whatever. Like, don't bother them while they're just living their life. Like, that's how you end up with a shitty interaction.
Yes.
I found for the most part, if you just leave people alone, they're very nice.
Yep.
You know, and if you're going to say something, like, be respectful.
Yeah.
You know, be like, I like your work. Like, I think you're, you know, whatever. Don't be like, I love you, you know, or whatever. Because that's how you end up being a weirdo.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, we've grown up in, or not grown up, we've worked a lot in the, like film and theater industry. And so we've been around famous people. And so, because, like, I would help load in and load out Broadway shows. Yeah. And a lot of those actors were very famous. Yeah. Right? Because they were on tour doing Book of Mormon, Wicked, right? So they're well known. And yeah, and like I've met like other, like I met Watsky a few times. I've, you know, run into various people because we live in New Mexico. Yeah. They film a lot of shit here.
They do, yeah.
I've been on the set of, I was on the set of Longmire. Yeah. And yeah, I think not enough people get the experience to like meet a famous person, so they don't know how to act around a famous person. Yeah. But when you've been around them enough, you're like, it's just a person.
It is just a person. I would say, like, there are famous people who are dicks. Right.
Oh, absolutely.
And they are very full of themselves.
Yes.
And but the thing is, right, like you get a pretty good sense for like who that's going to be before you even meet them. Yep. But for the most part, like every time I've met like somebody who's, you know, of a certain status, they're, if you just treat them like regular people, they're super cool.
Oh yeah. I was doing door monitor duty for one of the Broadway shows. Yeah. And there was like this big scene going on, and one of the actors came off, and he's kind of breathing a little heavy. And I like turned, I was like, "You all right?" And he was like, "Yeah, I need some water. You know, high altitude and all that." I was like, "Oh yeah, there's just some water like right over there." And you know, and I just, again, you treat them like a person. Yeah. Like, "Oh yeah, thanks," right? Famous person, right? But they're just a person.
Yeah, and you're gonna have a better interaction if you're just like treat them like a person. Yeah. Also, a lot of famous people like to talk about themselves. Yes. But a lot of them don't. Also, so it's just like regular people. Yeah. Like I love to talk about myself.
Oh yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. So if I was famous, I'm sure that's all I'd want to talk about.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
I'd be like, "Did you see me? Yeah. That's me up there."
I did that. Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I hate talking about myself.
Yeah, that's fair.
Do I? Oh, now I gotta introspect.
Oh boy.
Oh no. Anyway.
Yeah.
What was I talking about? It doesn't. Oh, I met Lawrence Fishburne. Yeah, he's great. He's the best.
Oh yeah, he sounds like an amazing
he's
guy.
Very nice. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So.
But yeah, he's great in this.
Yeah, he is. He is very good.
He's very funny.
Yeah.
He just shows up and you're like, oh, there he is.
Yeah, and I agree too, because like I feel like he is underutilized. Yeah. Because there's a lot of roles that I was like, man, you could put Lawrence Fishburne in that and it'd be really good. Yeah. Right? Because like, I mean, I feel like he's really only known for Matrix and this.
I mean, he was nominated for an Oscar. I can't remember for what. He's been in some major stuff, but it is unfortunate that he hasn't had like he should be Denzel. You know what I mean? Like he's that breadth of actor, but he just doesn't get the credit he deserves. I don't know why that is, but like he's not in The Matrix 4, which I'm in the rare group of people who kind of liked that movie, but
I haven't seen it.
If there's one thing that movie is sorely missing, it's him.
Yes.
Like, because I think he brings a gravitas that like you don't get from a lot of actors.
Yeah.
But
like that's Morpheus, man. Yeah. Like you can't have the Matrix without Morpheus.
And don't get me wrong, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II is the best. But I mean, just listen to his name. But,
incredible.
But he's not Lawrence Fishburne.
No. I don't think anybody can be Lawrence Fishburne.
No. But I think that's all I have to say.
Yeah.
Do you got anything else?
I'm trying to like think of the whole movie. The Marquis Man.
Good villain.
He did. His name is Bill Skarsgård, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He did such a good job. Mm-hmm. Like from the moment we meet him, I immediately hated him. I was like, oh, this guy's a huge dong.
Yeah, he sucks.
Like, yeah, he's just the worst. Yeah. And it made his death very satisfying. I was like, oh, thank God.
Yeah, I know.
But that's a testament to the actor, because fuck, like, he's just so good.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah, and he was one of those villains where he's not like outwardly evil, right? He's just sort of like snivelly and slimy about it.
Yeah.
And he's very manipulative, and you could tell that the character grew up in like a sort of he was like a spoiled brat,
right?
And so if he didn't get what he wanted, he'd just throw a tantrum.
Yeah.
Which goes back to the scene where Mr. Nobody kept hanging up on him, which I thought was just so funny.
That's a great scene.
Yeah, and so yeah, I loved him. The very opening, or not the opening scene, the desert scene where John is chasing those guys down on a horse, and he goes to the high table, whatever.
Yeah, the elder.
The elder, yeah. I didn't think he was gonna shoot him.
I had a feeling he was going to. But...
there was a part of me that was like, yeah, he might shoot him, but I was like, I don't know. Because I didn't know what the ramifications of that would have been. Right. And I think that might have been another, like, docking of points, is that, like, we see him shoot that guy. Uh-huh. It's brought up, like, maybe once or twice, and then never again. Yeah. And I'm like, I feel like there should be worse things that happen. Yeah. Or, like, there should be, like, as part of one of the themes of these movies, consequences. Like, what was the consequence of that? John just sort of was able to do that, and then what? Yeah. It was brutal. He double tapped the fucker.
Yeah, he did.
But I think it also kind of made sense that he shot him. Yeah. Because, like, that elder was like, yeah, you're not going to shoot me. You can't shoot me. Right. And John was like, yeah, watch me. And then just capped his ass. Yeah. That was interesting. I didn't really understand that whole scene. But yeah, it was still kind of cool. Yeah. Seeing him chase down some dudes on a horse. Yeah.
I think that's all I got.
Yeah. I liked in the Osaka Continental, when it was starting to get like raided. Oh yeah. And the manager like walks into the kitchen and he's like, "We're gonna have guests. Prepare to give hospitality." Oh yeah. And at first I thought that just meant, we're going to make them food and we're going to sit down and chat. Yeah. And then they opened up all the cabinets and there were just swords. Yeah. And bows and arrows and shit. And I was like, oh, that kind of hospitality. I see now. And that whole fight scene in the Osaka Continental was so cool. Yeah. Because, and this movie I think was really cool because, like, in all the other ones, we've only really had knives and guns. Yeah. In this one, we now get bows and arrows and swords. Yes. Which I think was a nice sort of
nice addition.
Nice, yeah. It was fresh. It
was fresh.
Having swords and bows and arrows and that sort of stuff, and people were using the bows in a very creative way, especially the daughter. Mm-hmm. She was kind of using it the way John was using the nunchucks, is just like a bat. Yeah. And just smacking people.
She also point blanks a dude with an arrow.
Well, yeah. I think that's one of my favorite things, is when people like, they're like kicking or like they're like tussling and they're using the thing, and then the person with the bow like gets the upper hand, gets them down on the ground, and then just like right in the face.
I'm like, would that work? I guess it would.
I mean, yeah. Yeah. But yeah, that was really cool. Yeah. It's a great movie.
It is a good movie.
Fantastic.
It's also one of ththose where it's like there's so much in it, it's like hard to pick out like individual moments. Yeah. Which is why I said most of the time we tend to like, because I like to watch things multiple times before I talk about it, but
with this,
I mean, I think we've got an hour and a half out of it, so
yeah, that's true. I thought also the way they decided like how the duel would happen.
Oh, that was interesting.
That was very interesting. I was a little bummed that they didn't do swords. I would have loved to see.
That would have been funny.
I would have loved to see a sword fight. Mm-hmm. The gun though was great, and the guns they used were really cool.
Very cool.
Ornate. They were like the classic like flintlock, except it used like those had to be like 45s.
Yeah.
Or some shit. And it cracked, slammed it in the back, popped it, and pulled the thing back. It was single shot, hand loaded. They were really cool guns. Yeah, they looked heavy.
They loaded like a shotgun. Which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, and they looked heavy.
They did look heavy.
But yeah, that whole duel was very fun.
It's a great movie.
I love it. Yeah, it's so good.
Probably, oh gosh, I've only seen 2 movies this year, I think.
Oh shit.
I mean, like, in the theater.
Right.
Because I saw Scream 6 a few weeks ago, and then this. Oh no, I saw Ant-Man 2.
Oh, okay. How was that?
That was fine.
Another Marvel movie?
Well, the thing is, right, like... That's always the start of a conversation.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too deep into it, because this is so not the format, but I have not seen a Marvel movie in the theater since Doctor Strange 2.
Okay.
The second, which was like early last year.
Yeah.
So like everything that's come in between I have just missed.
Right.
So I didn't hate it. Like I thought it was fine.
Yeah.
It made me laugh. Like it kept me entertained.
Good. Yeah.
I think the problem is at this point that I think the format has gotten old, I guess. Like the problem is that like I think certain movies have come about that have kind of made Marvel movies look trivial.
Yeah.
In a way. Not just trivial, but like, I don't know, like insincere.
Yeah.
Like I think people are yearning for a bit of sincerity right now. Which, say what you will about John Wick, like, even though it does have kind of that tongue-in-cheek, like dark humor.
Yeah.
I think there is something nice about a movie that takes itself seriously.
Yes.
Like no one's like pointing out how dumb their situation is or like hanging a lantern on it, right? Like everybody is like very, I don't know.
They're aware of the situation that they're in and they realize that like this is like fucked.
Right. And I like that it's refreshing to watch a movie like a big action blockbuster.
Yeah.
That felt like grounded.
Yes.
And not to say real, because like it's the dumbest thing in the world, but like it's it felt like people in a room talking to each other.
Yes.
Like it didn't feel like it was all shot on different days on a green screen.
Yeah.
Even though that last bit was a little floaty, at least it still felt like Keanu and Donnie were in the same room.
Yes.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah. And like even like all the stuff with like John thinking about his wife and stuff, like it got me choked up a little bit at the end. Yeah. Right? And I don't like, I can't remember the last time a Marvel movie made me feel that way.
No, I think Marvel, if you're listening, and I know you're listening.
Yeah.
They're not listening.
No.
I don't know. I think
just figure it out, man.
I think the problem is that people want something
new.
Not new, but they want something that feels tangible. You know, like I think the problem with Ant-Man is none of it felt like it was like happening. Like because it's like all in this like green screen Phantom Menace world where it's like nothing like and that is derogatory toward Phantom Menace because Phantom Menace has a lot of like real sets and and it just I don't know. I think people, myself in particular, and I think I'm tired of movies that look ugly.
Yes.
And I think Marvel movies are so gray and like muddy, and they're just lacking in like
in color and
creative flavor. Choices. Like like this, like John Wick. Like it's a different thing entirely, but like it's like bathed in like color and like
and there's just like even just like the shots. Right, there were certain just like camera angles and and going back to like the costumes of the Marquis.
Yeah.
Like he never once wore the same thing.
No.
He was this like incredibly dynamic character.
Right.
And I think that's what made him like so interesting and just like a good villain.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't like always in the same suit saying I'm an evil guy.
Right.
He was constantly changing. He was like, there was a black suit, there was a red suit, a white suit, right?
Yeah.
There was a sparkly one,
yeah.
right? And which is like a lot of that stuff. I was like, that's a very interesting choice because, you know, not all villains are going to be wearing that sort of thing. They're always portrayed in this like dark, gloomy, like edgy, like I'm a villain, I'm evil thing, right? This dude, you know, lounging back in this really bright, nice looking suit. And yeah, and just like the lighting, like the whole scene in the Osaka Continental, green lights, and it's dark, but you can still see stuff. That's another issue I have with a lot of movies right now. Yeah, is that it's too damn dark.
It is so fucking dark. Why is everything so dark?
Let me see shit. Like the best example that I always see is the Battle of Helm's Deep. Yeah. In Lord of the Rings, right? It's at nighttime, but you can see everything. Yep. You can see every fucking orc and Uruk-hai, and you see all the details because that's the point.
Yeah, and I don't know
because if you can't see anything, then you don't know what's going on. Right. And you're having to like squint.
I think I don't know where this sentiment came from that like shooting nighttime means shooting in the dark. Like I don't know.
No, it doesn't make sense. Like in the theater, right? When we're having a night scene, it's not. We don't make the stage dark. Right. We use cool colors and we dim the lights a little bit. Yes. Right. To show it is now nighttime. Yes. Right.
All I need to say is that, or what I want to say is, if you are making your movie dark to hide your CGI, maybe just don't use that much CGI. Like,
right. You can make practical sets.
I don't know, man.
Or go on location. Find a nice place in the world because we have some of the most amazing sites and locations in the world. Yep. And now guess what? You don't have to use CGI.
Yeah. I don't know.
You might have to do a little bit of color correcting, but Christ.
Yeah. Anyway.
Anywho.
We already rated the movie.
Yeah.
But big thumbs up from me.
Oh, huge. Two thumbs up, and if I could give like toes up. Oh,
4 toes up.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think. I think the next time a big movie like this comes out, it's going to be Indiana Jones.
That's what I was thinking.
I think that's the next big action blockbuster.
When does Oppenheimer come out?
July.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. That's not an action movie.
No, but we can go see it.
Well, yeah. I'm gonna go see it. Because I want to see what they got right.
Yeah. So we'll do this again. Yeah. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. I'd love to talk about the Indiana Jones movies.
We will. Jones. Well, your birthday's coming up.
Birthday.
So that's what we're doing for your birthday.
Birthday.
But anyway.
Yeah.
Next episode. We've been talking about a lot of white guys lately.
Yep.
So I had an idea.
Okay.
I think we're going to watch something with a little more diversity in it.
Okay.
I've been meaning for a while to talk about... I want to talk about a blaxploitation film.
Okay.
So I think we're going to watch Cleopatra Jones, which is it's a film from the 70s.
Okay.
It's real weird.
All right.
It's wacky as hell.
I'm ready.
But I just think, we need to take a break from talking about a bunch of white dudes.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So we'll switch it up. But
hell yeah.
Look forward to that next time.
Let's do it.
Check that out if you're wanting to keep up with us. But yeah. So if you liked this episode, go ahead and give us a nice review.
Yeah.
How many John Wick's dogs out of 5 should they give us?
10.
10 dogs out of 10.
10 dogs out of 5.
10
Yeah. Give us all of the dogs.
All the dogs. But if we're rating it on stars, how many stars?
Well, I always say as many as you can give.
As many as you can give.
As many as you can spare. Spare stars, man.
Spare some stars.
Yeah.
If you're rating us on iTunes or a platform that allows you to leave a written review, say something nice. Yeah. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Say what's up.
Say what's up. If you can't do that, or if you don't want to, just share it with a friend.
Yeah. I've been shout out to Edgar if you're listening to this one. He's one of my coworkers.
Hi, Edgar.
Yeah, I think it was like Thursday or Friday. I was like, oh yeah, you got any plans for the weekend? He was like, whatever, not really. I'm gonna go do this, not do this. He was like, what do you got planned? I was like, oh yeah, I gotta go, record for my podcast. And he was like, oh shit, you got a podcast? And I was like, hell yeah. And he was like, dope. And he immediately followed and listened to. I forget which episode he listened to, but yeah, he listened.
Right on. Well, thanks, Edgar.
Yeah, shout out to Edgar. See you on Monday. Or whenever.
If you have an Edgar in your life, just tackle them. Shove an AirPod in their ear. And hit play.
Yep.
Probably start with Mexican American. No, don't start with that
one.
No,
don't do that. I have showed so many people at my work Mexican American, or not even just like the full thing, just scenes,
the trailer or the scene.
The scenes. It's awful.
It's so awful.
It's so bad.
Also, I realized this week, this is so off topic. I hope this episode brings in some listeners, because I realized that I think part of the reason we struggle to grow as a podcast is because I keep picking movies nobody's ever seen before.
Yeah.
And I was like, Mexican American, this is like our funniest episode yet. It's got like 6 views on YouTube. And I'm like, well, maybe because no one's seen the movie, that could be why no one's listening to the episode.
Yeah, they're like, why would I want to listen to this about something I've never even heard of before?
So, hey, we did it. We talked about a movie people have probably actually seen.
There you go.
But anyway, if you'd like to recommend us a movie that you've seen, you can email us at vivalaaction@gmail.com.
Fax it.
Fax it
Don't
to
fax
us
it.
at
fax number.
You can text me at 5. No.
Here's where I live. You can send me mail.
Yeah. I just lost. You can follow us on social media. We are Viva La Action everywhere, including Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. You can find Grayson at your local animal shelter trying to pet a pit bull.
Yep.
And you'll find me licking a doorknob.
Excellent.
That's been the show. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Why would I be licking a doorknob?
I don't know.